The Smoking Glass Hour believes in giving back and giving credit where credit is due. Our number one goal is to make a difference. The music you hear on the Smoking Glass Hour comes from Purple Planet Music. They can be found at www.purple-planet.com. Go check them out. It's time to take back control of our society. Today's world requires an open and honest discussion about the current events. On the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass, our goal is to engage people from different walks of life into a healthy discussion, creating a positive outcome. When it comes to global events, tune in to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass on Monday nights at 7:30. We don't just listen to the news, we bring you the news. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. We are honored to have you as a guest tonight and want to thank each of you for your faithful support. Without further delay, allow me to introduce to you Mr. Baron Glass. Mr. Glass, take it away.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. On tonight, we will be joined by Mr. Gary Kroeger. Gary is a candidate that's running for the United States Congress out of Cedar Falls, Iowa. Gary's topic tonight will be the need for true progressivism. But before we talk about the need for true progressivism, let me give you a little bit of information about Gary. Gary says, I want my children to grow up in a melting pot of diversity. I want them to embrace all cultures and religions, not because they saw pictures in a book, but because they went to a friend's house who is Jewish or Muslim, or who is Mexican, Bosnian, Sudanese, or Iranian, and they saw how other cultures thrive within the safe confines of a free nation. First and foremost, I am the father of two wonderful boys. I am also a son, a brother, and the creative director at the advertising agency in Cedar Falls, Iowa. In my past, present, and future, I have been an actor, writer, political columnist, television host, voiceover artist, producer, and restaurateur. I am also running for the United States Congress. All civil rights are relevant to all Americans. If we allow the justification of discrimination to any group of people, how can that not preclude a dangerous affront to all the liberties we cherish? The inclusion of gay Americans to the guarantee and protection of civil rights is not symptomatic of the decay of our civilian, as some conservatives, moralists have stated. Rather, it represents our collective morality and the pursuit of liberty and justice for all. It is the advancement of civilization. Liberalism recognizes that the oppressive specter of discrimination weighs so heavily on those who are outside the circle of privilege drawn by prejudice that policy must be created to counter where oppression does still exist. Until such time when the evolution of inclusion transcends intolerance. The America I am proud of is a nation that endures the complexities of her fight for freedom and tolerance, that has risen from conflict to champion human rights. A nation that has proven her sovereignty with the realization of individual freedom and shines as a beacon of justice around the world. It's written by Gary. What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mr. Gary Kroeger. Gary, how are you doing tonight?
Well, great. Thank you. I just got choked up there because I'm so moved by the whole spirit of your show. The introduction, everything about the format, the concept of the Smoking Glass Hour is so magnificent, to have conversations moving toward the betterment of society. I mean, we need more Baron Glass programs out there. This is just magnificent, and thank you for the opportunity to be on your program tonight.
Yes, Gary. As always, as I told you when we were waiting, always allow each individual guest to add anything that they'd like for the audience to know that I failed to mention during the outset of the program? Is there anything?
Well, I think it's obvious from the words that you so generously read, my words that I've included on my own website. Civil rights are the paramount issue to me. Because if the United States of America does not fulfill and live up to its promise of justice and equality for all, then what are we supporting? What are we working for? What is America if that's not it? But yet we know that systemic racism, sexism exists in our society. So we must, as progressives, continually work toward progress to improve our country so that we can one day become the shining city on the hill and fulfill that destiny. Because you know what, I'm concerned about the environment. I'm concerned about foreign affairs. I'm concerned about the economy. But unless we define the truth of America, what we are, and again, the promise of freedom, then all of that becomes irrelevant. So it always starts with me, with civil and human rights.
Well, Gary, I'll tell you, you just basically talked about some of the exact things that we talk about. We have talked about for the past 3 years. When you look at what goes on around in this country, when you look at the Pledge of Allegiance that says with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Now, when we talk about all, we know that in some cases in prior history, all didn't include the 99%. Instead, it included the 1%. What we talk about here is all, meaning the entire 100%. So when you look at your topic, the need for true progressivism, tell us just a little bit about that, Gary, and we'll get directly to the heart of the discussion, and we'll go as deep as we need to make sure that everybody understands who Gary is, what Gary represents, and why you're running for United States Congress.
Thank you. Well, you know, at our core as human beings, there is a conservative nature to all of us. Every one of us wants to protect that which has protected us. Mm-hmm. So there's a tendency in human nature to conserve. So I understand conservatism. However, conservatism also plants the seeds of intolerance, of the seeds of lack of progress, of holding on to the status quo. It's necessary in society for progressivism to move that conservative nature toward a better realization of who we can be.
Mm-hmm. So
I am not...
Go ahead, Gary. Go ahead.
Well, see, I'm not the anti-conservative. You know, half of America identify themselves as conservatives. Well, they're not going to go away. We have to learn to understand each other and what it is that we're trying to do. Mm-hmm. I have many conservative friends. I understand that they like the status quo because that's what they know. But I try to show them, look at what we have because of progressivism. We are moving toward a better realization of human rights, of civil rights. We're moving toward a better environment, cleaner air and cleaner water. We're moving toward better realizations of justice. It is necessary for conservatism. But what I believe, Barron, is that especially in the last 50 years, progressives, let's call ourselves liberals, progressives / Democrats, mm-hmm. have been so willing to compromise our ideals that we as a country have moved too far to the right. Mm-hmm. I look at the right wing now, and it is being controlled by extremism. I studied Dwight Eisenhower, the President of the United States, the Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces. He would be considered by today's conservative standards a crazy liberal. Mm-hmm. He believed in socialized medicine. He fought for unions. He believed in military restraint. Well, those are not the tenets of conservatism now. But I think that as progressives, we are partly to blame for having allowed that conservative nature to go too far. And now we are at a critical juncture in our history where we must move left. We have to move left just to get back to the middle. And if we keep electing moderate Democrats, or I call them establishment Democrats, politically expedient, poll-driven Democrats, we're going to keep drifting to the right. We need bold, strong progressives who understand why human rights are necessary, why civil rights are necessary, why protecting the environment is necessary, why moral, sane, and just foreign policy is necessary. And we have to be strong. I do not like the word compromise. I like the word cooperation. We need the other side to cooperate. We need to show them the way of true progressivism.
Well, I'll tell you, Gary, when you look at what you just said, do you feel that some, not all, but some, have gone so far to the right that they are blind by their thought process, blind by their logic, to where there's a vast majority in this country who fail to understand that compromising, as it always has helped the country grow, refuse to compromise, and if so, what is it that we can do?
Well, you're correct, Barron. The right wing has become lockstep obstructionism. I don't see an idealism in their rhetoric anymore. I don't know what they stand for except to be against us, be against progressivism. You know, we have a president who is intelligent, who is thoughtful, who is educated, who was motivated, and we saw an entire party exist for the sole purpose of destroying his presidency. It is simply a testament to the man himself that he, I believe, will be considered one of the great presidents for what he has had to overcome and what he will still continue to move forward. That's because the progressives like ourselves have also been triggered. We've been enlightened ourselves to go, you know what? We can't just lay down anymore. We can't let the right wing define the left wing. We've allowed for 30 years. Now, like yourself, Barron, I know that for decades you have been asking for, praying for, and millions of others, like myself, a human being that we can trust, that does not move to the winds of political. And this man named Bernie Sanders came onto the scene. I mean, he's been around for a long time, but I really started paying attention last April. And I went, oh my goodness, this is what we've been asking for. So now it feels like this political ideology really has its moment in history. But it's going to take you, it's going to take me, it's going to take the listeners, it's going to take everyone around me. It's incumbent upon us. You ask what we can do. Well, we got to have big mouths. It's incumbent upon us to stand on top of the rock and deliver the message. It's incumbent on every one of us to reach out to at least 10 people who don't know where to stand and say, come here, stand with me. Listen to what this man has to say. Listen to what I have to say. Let's listen to what you have to say. And together we can unite into an absolute revolution, much like the one 240 years ago, where some crazy liberals had this idea that they could form a republic.
And I'll tell you, Gary, it appears that I am hearing you, myself, in the form of another individual, because everything that you've just stated, that is the same exact thing that I've been saying for months and months and months. We've done local and state election. We've done federal election, and we believe that when people have the option to be heard, they can make a change. And when you talked about defining liberalism, back when Joe Lieberman was in the Senate, I kind of felt like the Democrats at that point they started to allow everybody else to define them. They lost their spine, and as a result of them losing their spine, they basically have moved farther to some other place that we progressive no longer recognize. And I believe, Gary, this is that it is now time for all of those voices that have been suffering to stand up and let their voice be heard loud and clear. We no longer will tolerate the establishment. And if the establishment is going to continue to move in the direction that they're moving, it's time for a movement, a revolution, and it's time for a new dawn of an era. What do you think about that, Gary?
You took the words out. Anyways, I wish I had said those words myself. Baron, it's why I am running. Look, I'm not a political animal. I've always been interested in politics, involved as a writer. I've always been conscious of politics. I grew up in a family that would always discuss politics and my parents taught their sons the importance of participation, the importance of what a republic means, a representative democracy. But I've never been a politician before. I'm a guy with 2 young sons. I work a full-time job. I don't have money, and I'm not connected to money. I'm an outsider, and that's why I'm running. What I say to people is, folks, if I can't win because I don't have money, because I don't have political connections, because the machinery and the establishment haven't chosen me, then we're in trouble.
Right.
Because this nation was designed to have representatives from among the people to represent them. We have become an oligarchy, and this is the rhetoric, of course, of Bernie Sanders. We are controlled by money, special interests, dark money, corporate interests have determined what policy is. And the people have, unfortunately, to present.
Hey, Gary, I believe we're losing a little bit of your contact. I don't know if you're in a bad area or what. For true progressivism, we're talking to Mr. Gary Kroeger, who is a candidate for United States Senate out of the state of Iowa. And he's an agency worker. Establishment within the Democratic Party. We're talking about liberalism, which has been defined as a dirty word. We're talking about what is it that we can do to continue to move forward. We need voices. We need to be heard. We need bodies. We need people to stand up. We need intelligence. We need people to gain knowledge. And that's what Gary is pretty much talking about. Gary, I understand you're back. Go ahead.
Yes, I am here. Well, again, I was just saying that that's why I'm running. I'm running because I have a responsibility to myself, to my community, to my children, to their friends, to my mother, to my brothers, to my colleagues, to my state, to my nation, to this world. I feel a responsibility to do everything I can, every waking moment, to improve the environment economically, in terms of our health, in terms of our pursuit of happiness. I feel a responsibility to do everything that I can. And so that's why I'm running. I'm running against the machine. I am not the chosen one of my party or this primary. There's lots of interests in money that would like to see me go away. I think they'd like to see Bernie Sanders go away.
Exactly.
But that only fuels my desire, my intention. It fuels my purpose.
Well, Gary, I hate to jump in, but as these thoughts come, you again are saying exactly what I'm saying. You just said it in your way. I said that 23 years ago when I ran and still elected, I am commissioned to do the things that I'm doing. And other people don't understand why I and you and others do what we do, because we feel the need. We feel the courage and the urge to get out there and fight all these battles. And I'm almost certain in Iowa, with you in this progressive voice, you with this progressive movement, how tough has it been with the establishment coming after you, trying to probably come to you and ask you with money's under the table or whatever to please just back off? Don't let your voice be heard. Tell the voters that are out there listening now, Gary, how many issues you go through on a daily basis just to allow your voice to be heard.
Well, I don't know where to begin because I don't like. No, you know what? All bets are off, right? I am like yourself and like Senator Sanders. We have to be transparent. Mm-hmm. I got up at the Jefferson-Jackson dinner in Des Moines, where the candidates are introduced and the presidential candidates are introduced, and I wrote a piece that was to be read to say, look, I'm supporting Bernie Sanders, and the reason I am is because I am outside of the system. I am not about the establishment. I am about transparency and integrity in politics. Editing of my position. Mm-hmm. My reason for my candidacy was edited out. Look, I have a colorful past, Baron. I was on Saturday Night Live. I've been a It's not really what I want to put out there to say, pay attention to me because I used to be an actor. Mm-hmm, I wanted to state the purpose of my candidacy. Mm-hmm. That was cut out, and they said, "Oh, Gary Kroeger was on Saturday Night Live. Please welcome a candidate for the House of Representatives." Well, that was meaningless to me. Meaningless, and I was angry. But I encounter that quite a bit. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people who don't want to hear the truth that will come up to me and say, "Oh, Gary, don't jump behind Bernie Sanders. What if he loses? You're going to alienate the Hillary Clinton people. You're going to alienate other Democrats." And I say this. If this is who I am in my personal life, don't you want the same person in his public life? Mm-hmm. Thomas Jefferson once said, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, "I've never understood why there would be one moral code for a private person and another for the public person."
Say that again, Gary. Say that again.
Well, I'm messing up the first few words. But
and that's fine.
Never understood why there could be one moral code for a private man and another for a public man. In other words, why aren't we one and the same? So I say to people, I'm not against Hillary Clinton. I'm not against Martin O'Malley. I am for Bernie Sanders.
Say it again, Gary.
I line up, my policies line up with Bernie Sanders, but more than that, the fundamental tenet of his character, morally just, consistent, not politically expedient, waiting for the polls to come out to tell him where to be. Mm-hmm. He is morally just. That is what I stand for in politics and what I want to be in politics. Mm-hmm. And that is why I'm standing with the man, the person, let's say, every bit as much as the policy. Mm-hmm. And so I have to say that every day. People go, "Gary, you're a fool. You put all your eggs in one basket." You know what? I'm just being honest. Isn't that what you want?
Well, Gary, I can tell you that you sound so familiar, and the reason why is because the same thing that you're saying is the exact same thing that I go through down here in Louisiana. And you touched on something that I need to make sure that all the listeners out there now live and who will go back in the archives, we've talked about mainstream media controlling the message for the last 3 or 4 months. Mainstream media's number one goal, which is to distort the message and divide the people. We also know that mainstream media is controlled by 90% of 6 media corporation, which means they decide what you want to hear and what you don't. Gary, if you go on Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, and all those other affiliates, I can guarantee you they're not going to allow you to talk as freely as you are right now. They're going to make sure that your message is scripted. So that is exactly why we want Gary Kroeger, candidate for United States Congress in the state of Iowa, to be able to put his message out and share that message with other people so they can understand clearly exactly who you are and what you stand for. So when we look at mainstream media, how much of a role have they played in messing up the divide between the left and the right, the black and the white, the young and the old, the rich and the poor?
Well, again, Baron, that's one of those things I don't know where to begin because it's so complicated and it runs so deep. But you're correct. News has become entertainment. It's become about the dollars. Who's got the most salacious story? Who's got the most interesting storyline that will get us the greatest viewership? It's not about reporting the news in terms of, factual data. Mm-hmm. It's created. It's manipulated, just like you say. Mm-hmm. Now, I think Fox News is probably the worst of the worst. People on the right will say MSNBC is just as bad. Well, I don't agree with that. But at the same time, it's corporations, it's corporate interests that are determining who's delivering the news, what is the news that's being delivered, how is it being delivered, and when it's being delivered. Mm-hmm. I am old enough to remember, ABC and NBC and CBS with Walter Cronkite.
Right.
And I think we pretty much got the news as the news. It wasn't editorialized journalism, it was true journalism. Mm-hmm. But that's not the case anymore. There's 240 stations, and they're all competing 24 hours a day, and it's become corporatized. The local newspaper and the local television station here are just parts of a corporate conglomerate. I can't get any press here.
Are you serious?
So I don't get very much.
God.
So, the paper 60 miles away is more likely to come up here to cover a story with me than the one here. Mm-hmm. And, I have to scratch my head and kind of wonder if it's a political bias that they have. Mm-hmm. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but at the same time, I don't think that I get the attention that I should get in my hometown.
Well, here's what I say, Gary. If you are a candidate or anybody, why shouldn't the left get the same as the right, or the right get the same as the left? After all, we talk about equality, we talk about justice, we talk about equal rights, we talk about all of these things in this country, but when it comes time to displaying them and performing those things, it appears we fail. Gary, if you don't mind, we're looking at about 7:58 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you don't mind, we're going to pause for about 2 minutes and 15 seconds, run a few commercials. We'll be right back. So if you don't mind, hold the line, mute your phone, and we'll be right back.
You bet. Thank you.
We can be most effective when we are engaged in the political process, and there's no time like the present. One of our main goals is effective advocacy through active participation from you. Those who stand for nothing will fall for anything. Our efforts to keep you engaged and informed as to the importance of current events happening locally and abroad started 2 years ago. Our number one goal is to make a difference. We need you. Join us at the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. Catch us at www.thesmokingglasshour.com.
We are back broadcasting live. I think we had a little computer glitch there, but that's fine. We're talking tonight to Mr. Gary Kroeger, the need for true progressive.
Does Stokey Stokes sell cars that are high mileage with no warranty?
Hell to the law, no.
Stokey Stokes, if my credit is bad, should I just give up?
What?
What if I have a cosigner?
What?
What if I still owe money on the car?
What?
What if I have a paid for a trade and or money down? Can I come in?
Okay.
Go down and see Anthony Stokey Stokes at Steve Landers Kia at 4600 South University and let him make you a deal. He's the deal maker. He said that if you're thinking about going to another dealership for a better deal, Anthony Stokey Stokes at Steve Landers Kia said,
Hell to the law, no.
Call him them today at 501-952-2868, 501-952-2868, or go online at Steve Landers Kia Dealership in Little Rock, Arkansas. Put Anthony Stokes as your salesperson, or go by the 4600 South University Steve Landers Kia location. Anthony Stokey Stokes, the deal maker.
Hello, this is Baron Glass, host of the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass on the all-new #1 global radio station, WMAD. Before I do my live broadcasting, I always dine in at the all-new Main Street Seafood Restaurant located in downtown Columbia, Louisiana, owned and operated by Miss Brett. Check them out. I did.
Once again, we're back broadcasting live with the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. Tonight we have Mr. Gary Kroeger, candidate for United States Senate, the United States Congress rather, the need for the progressivism tonight. We're talking about the movement with the Progressive Caucus. We're talking about Senator Bernie Sanders. We're talking about the message. We're talking about all of the things that are going on in this country. And when we look at this country, Gary, we see how vilifying, malign people have against this president of the United States. When we look at all of these things that America say that they have stood for, when we look at Donald Trump, when we look at Ted Cruz, when we look at all of those guys on the right, even Ted Cruz, his mother and father being citizens of Canada, Barack's mother being an individual from the United States, Barack being born in Hawaii, you see how the hypocrites come out talking. And I want to talk about that. Why is it that the Republicans, or the GOP, or the elite, the 1%ers, or whatever they choose to be called, why is it that they feel that they control the message in this country, and if you don't follow that message in this country, then you are considered a traitor in some cases. You are considered an outsider in other cases. Talk to me, Gary, about how you experienced that coming from our and a progressive in the progressive movement.
Well, you know, when you don't believe in something, all you know is, let me put it this way. I've always felt that the new right wing, and when I say the new right wing, I am deliberately contrasting it from the old right wing. Now, I'm from a progressive history, my parents and my family, and I've been a liberal Democrat my entire life. But I can go back 50 years and respect the Republican conservative, well, not so much the conservative party, or conservatism, because that was the bastion for racism right there. But Republicans I could respect. But now they've lost their way. When you don't believe in anything, you know what you're against. Does that make any sense? When you don't know what you're for, you know what you're against. Mm-hmm. I don't know what Republicans today are for. I don't know what principles they're for. I just keep hearing about what they're against. They're against immigration. They're against raising the minimum wage. They're against taking money out of the oligarchic hands and funneling it back to the working class. They're against a moral and just foreign policy, and so they simply want to, in the words of Ted Cruz, turn the sand to glass. That's what they're for.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, I think they're lost. And so they're fighting to have something to get behind.
How about blind in one eye and can't see out the other?
Well, there you go.
And when we look at all of this, Gary, on a serious note, let's look at some of the things that I know that Senator Sanders is standing for, and as he run for this great position. When we look at Gary Kroeger, tell us your position on, let's look at education, and then let's go to one of these hot topics like climate change, and then let's go to, health care. I mean, we can go on and on and on, but I want to make sure that you get your message out, and all of those callers that are out there on the line, Dr. Rita Spilkins out of the state of Missouri says that you're spot on. He's right on. She's loving what she's hearing you talk about. So while you have this audience, Gary, while you're not engaging with mainstream media whose goal is to change and coerce you to say what they want you to say. You have the floor. Talk about the things that are dear to you, and we'll engage from that standpoint.
Well, you said it right there, and let's start with education. I'm a tax-paying American, and if 25 cents out of every dollar that I make goes toward the infrastructure of this nation, goes toward the preamble to the Constitution, the general welfare, the common good, if it provides medicine to every American, if it provides education to every American, I am happy with the money that I spend. And for the national defense, if that's where my money's going, I am proud. If a piece of my money is going to protect people and give them a safety net for when they fall on hard times, I'm happy to spend that money. If part of my tax money is going toward ensuring clean air and clean water for my family and my neighbors and my children, I'm happy to spend that money.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much talk about taxes. Well, you know what? I don't like to pay anything that I think is unfair, but I'm willing to pay everything that I think is fair.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that right now what we get in the United States of America is an extraordinary deal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would like to see education guaranteed to every student. I like Bernie Sanders' idea, and I like paying for it with a transactional fee on those high-risk trades made on Wall Street. Those people that preyed upon workers, pensions, preyed upon the collapse of our economy and made money and laughed all the way to the bank. I'm happy to see them pay a little fee that could translate into, what, $1.5 trillion over 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
To pay for these things, to pay for the education of our students.
Mm-hmm.
That is the greatest engine toward our prosperity right there, is to educate.
Mm-hmm.
I would be happy
Well,
to see every child have an opportunity to go through college.
so Gary, is that one of your talking points with regards to Gary Kroeger, candidate for United States Congress? And if so, is it fair to say that should Senator Sanders win the nomination and go on and win the office for the President of the United States, that you would be one that's in the caucus from Iowa supporting him with the push for affordable college tuition for all the people that are willing to go to college here in this country?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You see, in order for the Sanders presidency to work, we need a progressive House. The president alone, if he faces the obstructionism that President Obama has had to face, you can't get as much done. We need a progressive House to move in. It may not happen this year, but we need to keep pushing so that in 2 years from now, we have the ability to actually get these things done.
Mm-hmm.
I support the Affordable Care Act, but I'd be all in for single payer, just like Senator Sanders. That's another thing that I think a great and powerful nation should be proud to say, we take care of the health of our citizens. Why? It's almost laughable to think any other way.
Mm-hmm.
To be proud that we educate and take care of the health of our citizens. I would be all in for single payer. Now, that's going to be real hard to get through Congress anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
What I'd like to do is I'd like to improve Affordable Care Act.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to make it possible for bidding over state lines so we could bring costs down. There's a section of the middle class that doesn't make enough for subsidies, or makes too much for subsidies but doesn't make enough to be able to afford the cost.
Mm-hmm.
They need tax breaks.
Mm-hmm.
They need tax breaks. I want to see things like that so that affordable care works even better.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Gary, let's look at another hot topic that has been going on for many years. And I think now there are voices that are out there that are no longer afraid. They are tired of the same thing going on, and they are not going to tolerate. Let's look at, we signed a contract, we being this country, with young men and women to go overseas in unforeseen land and fight for the liberty of this country. They go over and fulfill their commitment with this contract. When the contract expires, they come home to a bill of goods that have basically been sold a dream. We have homeless vets. We have women that's in the military that are being raped on a daily basis, and the rank and file within the establishment refuses to deal with these issues. Should you become a United States Congress and work with Senator Sanders, if successful, what is it that you can tell the people now that can give them some type of guarantee, in a sense, not a promise that you can deliver, but something that you would not let be on the back burner with regards to homeless veteran and the raping and all that goes on in the military?
Well, my goodness, yes, absolutely. It's one of the things I've written about this. Here, the right wing likes to say that they support our troops. But what they're really saying is they support any imperialist military intervention by a Republican president. That's really what they're saying. Because if you support your troops, that means that you do everything you can to bring them home alive. Mm-hmm. You do everything you can to give them the armor and everything that they need, the moral objectives, an exit strategy, better foreign policy. And then when they come home, they deserve the pension, the pay, the health care that their service should be rewarded. Mm-hmm. That's what it means to support our troops. But it's become a platitude. The right wing says, we support our troops, but yet they allow the cut in military funding for health care, for example. Mm-hmm. It's astonishing. It's perverse. I would do everything that I can to support Senator Sanders' plans to improve veterans' benefits for their families, for their pensions, veterans' pay, which has been cut, everything that I possibly could. Mm-hmm. But just as important, we have to look at our foreign policy. Mm-hmm. I have two young sons, Baron, two young boys, and I would be proud of them if they went into the military. But I will be darned if my boys are going to become cannon fodder for political purposes because someone wants to beat their chest to turn the sand to glass to show the might of America without understanding the residual effects of carpet bombing, for example. Mm-hmm. We hear that rhetoric, don't we, in the Republican debates? Mm-hmm. Carpet bomb them into oblivion. Well, you've just killed women and children, too, when you do that. You just created more terrorism in the long run. And I will be darned if my boys are going to become ground troops to fulfill some jingoistic, illogical, immoral foreign policy. So it begins there with supporting our troops. We need to know what our directives are, what our objectives are, and we need to look deep. What are the repercussions? Mm-hmm. How do we avoid going to war rather than beating our chest and saying we're going to go to war? Mm-hmm. Dwight Eisenhower was the supreme commander of the Allied forces, and he himself said, as a soldier, I saw how wrong war was, how stupid it was, how futile it was. We must do everything we can not to go to war. Now, that's a progressive ideal, and it's not the talk on the right wing, but that's how dangerous they've become over there. A Republican president with a Republican Congress? Who knows? Who knows? They're putting our lives in jeopardy. And certainly our soldiers' lives.
Right. And
that was sort of a convoluted, long-winded way of answering your question, but it's so multi-layered. Foreign policy is part of protecting our troops, mm-hmm. but better benefits for the troops and their families when they come home. It's so essential. We don't need to cut those budgets. It's just it's a fundamental moral expense.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Gary, let's
count as Americans to take care of our veterans.
Yeah, let's kind of switch gears. We know that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and former First Lady is, in a sense, to some in the progressive movement, is really trying to distort the beliefs and the values of Senator Bernie Sanders. Let's look at one of the hottest items that have been out there for many years, the NRA and gun control. No one that I know of from the Progressive Caucus, from the Democratic Party, or anywhere that's out there has ever said to take away the Second Amendment right from anybody that I know of, anybody. So, absent of taking away the Second Amendment, what is it that you think could happen or are willing to propose by way of a bill or co-authoring or something to that effect when it comes to gun control or issues involving all of these shootings that have taken place in the last 10 years, most recent within the last 5 years?
Well, thank you for asking that, and that's an important issue to me. I've been in a conversation with someone the other day, and they said, well, Gary, you can create all the regulations, but it's not going to stop the crime. I go, well, you know what? We have traffic signals, and it doesn't stop all the people from running red lights, but that doesn't mean we should take the red lights down, does it? What a responsible society, a civilized, responsible society does is everything that it can to keep guns from those who shouldn't have them and hold those who do accountable. Guns are deadly force. A bullet fires at twice the speed of sound. Not just anyone can have that. That's pretty logical. So I essentially support President Obama's plan to have more comprehensive background checks. We have to know who's getting the guns. That includes gun shows and second-party sales. That means checking databases. Felons, domestic violence, these people need to be taken off the list. We don't want them to have guns. Now, I see no reason why there should be armor-piercing bullets in civilian society. Outside of law enforcement and military, why would we have armor-piercing bullets? And furthermore, I would bring back the assault weapons ban that expired in 2002. But even Ronald Reagan, in his retirement, supported the assault weapons ban. Assault weapons simply do not have a place under the protection of the Second Amendment. It was a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state. Well, that doesn't mean any and all forms of personal deadly force. You have to look at it in the context of its time. I'm not going to take away the Second Amendment and say, I'm not going to take anybody's arms away, anybody's guns. But, again, Baron, a gentleman asked me that question. But I want to be sure that everyone that has guns are as responsible with them as I know you are. That was a good answer to him.
Right.
He understood where I was coming from.
Right.
That's my answer.
And for some reason, Gary, they feel that they're where it's like there's no logic, and you have all of these other countries that are sitting here laughing at the things that we're doing because we have tried to display a certain when in fact we won't address racism here in this country. We won't address sexism in this country. We'll do all of these other things, but we won't address our own evils. Let's look at women's rights and women's rights to choose. When you look at that from a federal level, what is it that the progressive movement is willing to do, willing to support, so those who are out there listening can understand how the progressive movement is going and what it is about the progressive movement that need to move them from that old slave man stinking thinking mentality to something that's brighter and give them a future as well as for the millennials that are now coming up?
Well, with regard to a woman's right to choose, a woman must have dominion over her body. Anything less is to say that she's not of equal status, of equal rights. Isn't it? A woman must have dominion. She must make the decision regarding a pregnancy. I believe that a woman with the counsel of her family, her doctor, her clergy, That's who makes this decision, not the United States government. Now, Roe v. Wade exists. You know, the term by which viability is presumably measured, it exists. Now, I'm a progressive, and I support a woman's right to choose. I would have the conversation about where that viability line can be, but up until that point, it is not a human life. It is a potential human life. There are people who don't like to hear that. They believe that life begins at conception. No. A potential human life begins at conception. And where we put this line of viability is where we must abide. Up to that point, outside of course, a woman's life being, you know, a health risk, up to that point, it is the decision of a woman solely, and with whatever counsel she may employ. And that's what it must read in the law.
So, Gary, do you feel that some on the opposite side of the political spectrum, the other side of the aisle, the GOP, when we look at Mr. Trump and Ted Cruz, Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, and all of those other guys, Marco Rubio, I mean, it just appears that everything that this country has fought for, everything, it appears that they want to go back to discrimination when we have always allowed immigrants to come here to this country. It is called the melting pot. Now, I'm not saying, and I'm almost certain you're not saying that you don't go through strict background checks and things of that nature that have always existed up until now. And just because one Muslim or one Muslim or one African American or one Chinese or whatever the case may be, because they have caused problems, does not mean you group that one with the majority. How do you feel about that?
Well, of course you're correct. Of course you can. Look, freedom isn't free, and it isn't necessarily safe. We must understand that to be truly free, that we have to allow freedom. And that means in America, we don't carry our citizenship papers around. We don't carry these things. That's a police state. And so many people on the right are trying to create those kinds of parameters to keep them safer. They're actually diminishing the liberty they claim to covet. They're actually their own enemy. They want to create parameters around freedom, restrictions to freedom to guarantee their safety. Well, that's not what freedom is. That's not what freedom is.
Well, and I'll tell you, Gary, it appears, like I said, we all have gone to all of these history courses that tells us about this, that, and the other. And it appears that you take somebody like Ted Cruz, who is now saying, now, it has always been that liberty and justice for all was supposed to be for all. It has always been that a natural-born citizen meant exactly what it said, natural-born citizen. So now, why all of a sudden does the establishment from the other side of the aisle want to come in and specifically change the terminology so it can fit this particular person so he might be able to run for the office of president when it's clear that he's not qualified?
Because the truth doesn't matter to them. They will manipulate. It's just frustrating. It's just frustrating. The truth doesn't matter to them. The truth doesn't matter to them.
Well, if the truth does not matter, let's take that. If the truth does not matter, and those guys have about 40 to 45%, give or take, of support that's out there in this particular country. So if they have that amount of people that are out there basically supporting them, does that mean that something is wrong with the supporters? I mean, explain that to me in your terms, Gary.
Well, they're scared. They're scared, and this triggers their defense. This is systemic racism. It's systemic sexism. Where do those things come from? They come out of fear. And so then they're creating new ways to cope with their fear. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're justifying. I'm trying not to say what I want to say.
Well, let me tell you, Gary. There are no restrictions, as I told you. You're not on Fox News. You're not on MSNBC. Go for it if you choose to. Now, it's on you.
All right. They're masking racism. Now, are they racist? Well, I don't know what their intent is or what they believe themselves. But I believe that they're carrying the threads of historic systemic racism. And they're denying it because they don't want to be racist, sexist. They don't want to be. They're not going to admit to it. They're not admitting it to themselves. But they're carrying the threads of the history of separatism, racism, and sexism along with them.
Well,
they just won't admit to it. But they gather together, and it's like when something happens in Ferguson, what happened? Why was that a Republican or a progressive and conservative debate? Why couldn't conservatives look at that situation and go, wait a second, we've got to look into this? A young black man was killed under suspicious circumstances. Why did that suddenly become a divide of ideology? That's where I have a problem. If conservatives had stepped up and Republican leadership had said, you know what, we need to investigate. But instead they went, you know what, the kid was probably a criminal and a cop was doing his job. Why did it come down to that?
I'll tell you, Gary, you got a listener that's out there that says that white men aged 55 plus are feeling very threatened. Also saying that England has over 600,000 signatures to block Mr. Trump from going to England. That's in reference to the discrimination and things of that nature. It also says that 100% prejudice. And here's the thing, Gary. I believe that, before I do that, what we're going to do, Gary, we're going to go ahead on and open up the lines out there now, because I know that there are callers out there. And we're going to allow these callers to come in and engage in the conversation, talk directly to Gary Kroeger, candidate for Congress in the state of Iowa. But before we do that, Gary, when we look at all of these things, I feel that my commission is this. If there is a person that's out there who looks like me and come on this broadcast and says that, well, I don't like Gary because he is Anglo-Saxon. My job is to 100% break that down and tell them we may be friends, but I 100% disagree with you, and I will not allow you to call somebody or make a judgment on somebody when you know nothing about them. However, white America must do the same thing. Just because there's one person that goes in and robs and steals does not identify or define who I am or who other people are. We want the same thing that other people want in this country. The problem is there are still systemic roadblocks that exist. If you look off into the prison system, if you look off into institutionalization, if you look off into the education, Brown versus Board of Education, the facts that existed then, they are still existing now. And what I'm saying and advocating is this, is that people like you and I, people like all of those other listeners that's out there that believe in equality and justice for not some, but all, when we start to rising up and living out the true meaning of what Martin King said, whose birthday is today, what the founding fathers, I hope, meant at some point in time, we can then start going down this road of success, and we can sit down at this table of brotherly love where you and I can join hands, and where we agree, we can move forward, and where we disagree, we can respectfully disagree without causing too much political discourse, and we still can be friends at the end of the day. Gary, I'm going to give you the opportunity to respond to that, and then I'm going to open the lines and allow any caller out there to engage. Go ahead, Gary.
Well, all I can say is from your mouth to God's ears. What you speak is the truth. That's where we have to go. But what it requires is vigilance. We must church, get up at work, get up in the town square, get on the phone, get on Facebook, to our friends, talk to our friends at barbecues, and deliver that message. What you just said will resonate with a lot of people, some of whom it has never occurred to. We need to keep delivering the message. And eventually, here's the good news, Baron, here's the good news. We have problems. We have dire problems. We are on a precipice that could actually move us back from the progress that we made. If you look at the timeline of history, because of progressives, we are moving forward. You know, it's almost like the stock market. You look at it over history, it's gone up, even though we've seen canyons, we've seen it drop. I do believe that our movement is winning.
And I believe, Gary, that we are doing some things. My position has always been, if you take going from 1 to 10, has America moved from 1 to 2? Yes. My thing is that we should be farther along from 1 to 2. We should be way closer to 10. So my thing is that we still have work to do, but we get work done by having casual conversations like we're having tonight, and allowing everybody to understand that when you talk and I talk, we get an understanding of who we are, and we understand our experiences in life. We're going to open up the lines right now. If there's any caller that's out there who would like to engage in this topic tonight, the need for true progressivism with Gary Kroeger, candidate for United States United States Congress, out of the state of Iowa. You may do so. Come on in, caller.
Hello.
Hello. How you doing?
Who are you talking to?
You, caller.
Me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Gary. Baron.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi.
Are you both there?
Yeah, we're here.
Both here, waiting for you.
Okay, great. Gary, I am so proud of you, and Baron, you are on spot tonight, and this show is really awesome because everything that you guys have been saying, I know in my heart is 100% on the market. And basically what we're dealing with, I think, is that the Republican Party keeps people in fear. Fear
That's right.
of black against white, fear against Catholic against Jewish, against Protestant against Methodist. Everybody has fear. And that 55 white men over and over are shaking in their shoes is because the black... I'm not kidding you.
I know you're right.
This is not
You're
from
right.
Rita. This is from national polls, and it's 100% on target because they were at the top of their game. There are other populations, black, different ethnicities, coming into play that are now surpassing the white man.
That's right.
Now, men have a different way of dealing with things than women. Men have a pyramid stature where one man's on top and everyone else is clawing to get him off. Women have like a spider web where if one woman falls, she's buoyed by the other women. And men have it very, very rough. They really do in our society. But Republicans put in that fear-mongering crap, and it scares the heck out of older people. If you take both sides of the United States and cut out the middle, you would have all Democrats. The middle of the country is white, middle to lower class people who are farmers, who are laborers, who are very bright people. They're of the land, but they go what to do. They go to church, temple, whatever. I'm not trying to single out the church, believe me. I'm saying they go to their respective places of worship, but the leaders are pointing them toward people don't realize that Medicare Medicaid are for them, but they vote against it because Republicans are pushing this thing about have your own and da 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 da. Guess what? They can't. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I live here in Missouri, and God bless these people. They're wonderful. They're warm. They're compassionate. They are being led by their nose. They're ringing their nose, and I'm thinking, holy moly! I mean, I've got to get out of here. It's like this is scary stuff. And what are you doing in Iowa, for goodness sake?
Well, Iowa's interesting. It's really a 50-50 state. We went for President Obama the last two elections, but then we took a hard, and yet we took a very hard turn toward the right last year, which is really the impetus for me to get into the race has been Rod Blum, Joan Ayers, joined the likes of Steve King, Tea Party Republicans. But we have a long
But
history
what happened,
of progressivism.
Gary? What happened between 2 years ago and 2 years before that and last year? Was the economy going downhill? Were there fair tactics going on?
Yeah, Iowa is a little bit unique, and it's a little bit unique because it really is sort of 50-50. There's a very progressive history here. We were one of the first states to strike down DOM, for example. And that really surprised people. Oh, a bunch of, Iowa, a bunch of farmers struck down the Defense of Marriage Act? Well, we have a history of this. There's a large academic presence here. There's a large union presence here. There's a large rural, and there's a large manufacturing presence here. So we tend to go both ways. So what happens is we'll swing a little bit left, but when we went for Obama twice, the other half really got up in arms. They really got agitated. And they sort of won the last battle. They tipped it in favor of the other one. That's why I believe if we really unite as a strong progressive voice, we can get back to the left again in this state.
I agree with you. But you know what? I think Barron brought military in because right now, what I'm doing in Missouri and what other people I hope will do in other states is go to your VVA, which is Vietnam Veterans of America, go to your VFWs, go to your American Legion halls, and tell them that our military is at a tipping point. Okay? I've been working with the men and women of our military. I am disabled, but that doesn't stop me from talking and going and doing what I think is right for our country. I've been talking to these young people and older, the old and also the Department of Justice. Why the Department of Justice? Because they have stopped the investigations of the wait list. And I'm thinking the wait list is not WAIT, it's weighted list. People get put to the bottom of the list and they die. And that happened in Nazi Germany, right? So the first time I read this was a few days ago, and I had an appointment at the VFW, and I got sick to my stomach. And I said, holy smoke. And the Department of Justice stopped investigating these people? What the heck? What is going on in our country? And then to have the woman who was the top of the ladder at the VA, and she was taken out of there by the VA because, oh my God, how many young people that had just come back from the war were killing themselves. She was transferred down to Phoenix, and what happened in Phoenix was the death lists. So something is going on in all the VAs, all the VA hospitals, the clinics, and it's, they had $367 million to spend last year, and Obama said, no, cut that in half. So they had 190. I mean, it was like cut in half, but they were giving themselves bonuses, these fat cats at the top of the ladder. And these men, the homeless, veterans, how many homes can you build to house these people? How many apartments can you build to house them? How many clothes can you buy for them with $197 million that went to the fat cats at the top?
Mm-hmm.
Give me a break, you know?
Well, it's appalling. And, 14 years at war will create all sorts of problems in this regard. We need oversight. We need a glaring spotlight.
Exactly.
I believe Senator Sanders talks about this.
Exactly.
Well,
you know what he said?
Oversight and a spotlight on this.
Yes. You know what he said? Bernie Sanders said, if you're going to send these kids to war, you better make damn sure you have money put aside for their health benefits when they come home.
That's right. He also, in terms of his foreign policy, look, yes, we need to be strong, but we need to be smart.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking earlier, if you were listening earlier, we were talking about the fact that we need to take care of these men and women when they come home and for their families and better benefits. And mental health needs to be understood. And 14 years of war creates issues that we don't even know about yet.
And it was a great and you know what? There was a great Republican president that said, "And let us protect and help the widowed and the orphaned child." Lincoln. Well, so what the heck has happened to the Republicans that they're leaving everybody behind, including the old?
Well, when the neocons
veterans
took over 35 years ago, that was the beginning of the end, because Dwight Eisenhower could have made the same quote as Lincoln. There were still responsible Republicans until capitalism became our moral system as well.
Right, exactly.
We're measuring justice by money. We're measuring justice by profit margins.
That's exactly right.
Well,
and you know what? It stinks.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
You know what? I'll back off because I know there are other people. What my last comment is, Gary, to you and Barron, is that absolute power corrupts absolutely. And unless we turn the clock around in our heads, thankfully, thank God, the younger people who have not been polled, I really believe are going to pull this election, and Sanders is going to high up there. That's what I'm praying for, that the younger people have the sensibilities that we don't have.
Yeah, Dr. Spilkin, if you don't mind, just hold on the line. I'm just going to make sure. We have any other callers out there who'd like to engage in the conversation, the topic tonight, the need for true progressivism with Gary Kroeger. You may chime in at this time.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead. How you doing, caller?
This is Vanessa.
How you doing, Vanessa? Go ahead.
I'm good. As far as because he's running for Congress.
United States Congress out of the state of Iowa. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm curious about how to go about. Okay, but if you want to recall somebody, or if you want to change a law, or change a policy, or whatever, exactly how does the public do that? What steps do they have to take to start something? I hear people talk about referendums and getting petitions and this, that, and the other. But I think a lot of people just don't know how to change something that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They feel like they can't do anything, like they have no power to change it.
Go ahead, Gary.
Well, I'll give you the short answer, which is the answer that it should be, is that a representative needs to listen to his or her constituents. Listen, but you see, a representative represents the quietest voice as well as the loudest voice, represents the minority as well as the majority. One of the mistakes that we've made in this country is believing that this is a direct democracy. We're doing tonight. We walk away with a better understanding of what the needs are. So then your legislator constructs a bill to address the issue, and then looks for co-sponsors to that bill, and then they try to bring it down to the floor to vote on it, to turn it into a law. Often they don't get down to the floor. That's why we want control of the House, so that the Speaker will take those bills down to the floor. That's why we've been in a stalemate with progressive policy, with a Republican House. But that's why it's important to vote. That's why it's important to get out there and vote. Carry your convictions and your ideals, and who will work for you. I'm giving a long answer to what I said would be a short answer, but the problem we have now is the caller, Vanessa, your voice is being squashed by money.
Mm-hmm.
That they can buy politicians, they can buy votes, they can diminish your interests for their own personal self-interest because they have the money to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's where this revolution has to take hold. That's an oligarchy. We need to get back to a representative democracy. To other legislators and say, hey, we've got a problem in America with this, this, and this. Let's start to study this, write a good bill, look at it, bring it to committee, take it to the floor, and vote on it. Maybe we need to reform it, amend it, but legislators need to keep fighting for what is right. In your interest, not in the interest of corporations, not in the interest of special interests.
Well, Gary, you are exactly right, and Vanessa, I know in most places you get with the Secretary of State's office, and there's a certain percentage of voters that you have to have that signs the petition for a recall, and just like they did Scott Walker up in the state of I can't think of where it's at now, but they did him.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin. Yeah,
Wisconsin.
Right,
Yeah.
And that's what Gary, I think would be a wonderful thing, because see, if you're in a wheelchair, you still can talk. If you have any handicap, there's still room at the table for you to sit down and let your voice be heard. And that's what we need. If we have somebody that's out there in these public offices and they are not doing the job, we the people, the will of the people, need to get up, go to the Secretary of State's office, local clerk's office, and get the information and start a petition drive, because see, social media is just as powerful as mainstream media. But see, most of the time when people are on social media, they're talking about who got shot, who walked over to the neighbor's house, and who cheated with this person, or who cheated with that person, rather than talk about issues that we are talking about tonight that can make a difference. Gary, we know that running for public office is very strenuous. Let's talk a little bit about, I think, one of the most erroneous Supreme Court cases that has ever existed, Citizen United. Let's talk about that, Gary.
Citizen United is a slap in the face of a representative democracy.
Mm-hmm.
It takes the power out of the hands of the people, the aggregate force of the people, the voice of the people, and it puts it into dark money special interests.
And you know what? It was done by the Supreme Court.
Right.
Harry, that was done by the Supreme Court. Could you believe it?
Yes.
Disgusting.
Yeah, then again,
unbelievable.
That's because we have a conservative Supreme Court, because when for too many years of presidents that picked their Supreme Court, nominee and got them through.
I agree.
That they ruled in the interests of money.
Yep, that's right, and they're still doing it.
And I'll tell you, Gary, I was thinking the other day, I am not a Hillary Clinton supporter by no means. I don't dislike her. She's not my candidate. However, when you look at the president of the United States, within the next 4 years, whoever wins president will have the opportunity to at least appoint 1, 2, or 3 associate justices on the Supreme Court. At least if she's elected, she can do that, and we can continue to ensure justice, fairness, and equality for all people. So I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, because I had no desire, because somebody said on one of the broadcasts last week that no vote is a voice as well. I'm not sure how to take that, but I disagree with that. At any rate, she can at least put somebody on the Supreme Court that would at least do the things that we need done. So when we look at all of these things, Gary, how do you go about creating and building coalitions of all people, rainbows, diversity within your unit? And what is it that you'd like for all of those listeners out there right now to do to help Gary Kroeger with his bid for United States Congress?
Can we do anything?
Well, yes. I'll get to that at the very end, so it's the last thing you hear. You know, I'm going to give you an answer that's more, I think, idealistic and spiritual. And that is the fact that we need to keep drilling down to the truth. You know, I've often said it's harder to be a Democrat because when the palette of your ideology includes all walks of life, religious, ethnic, economic, all walks of life, answers aren't simple solutions. You have to go deep. You have to go 2 or 3 layers down. You have to look at the consequences of legislation before you create legislation. You really have to go deep. But I truly, sincerely believe that programs like this, conversations that we're having, a commitment to justice, a commitment to truth. We need to look at our journalists, for example. We need to hold them accountable.
Right.
We're the ones who are buying the soap, folks. We're the ones watching the programs. It is incumbent on us to say, no more lies. I want the truth. I want to know who you are. I want to know what you're for. But I believe, or I wouldn't be doing this, that we can do it. We just can't quit. We cannot quit. I hope to win, but even if I lose, I do not quit. I will continue to be a voice preaching for reason, preaching for hope, preaching for compassion, preaching for justice.
I think it's called sanity.
It's called sanity. You know, I love that you said that. Because I call it sanity in foreign policy, sanity in gun policy, sanity in environmental policy, sanity in educational policy. Yes, sanity.
Yes.
I am working toward a sane world. You are too.
Hey, Gary.
Most people are. Even those working against us think they are. I'm willing to do the math, folks.
Right.
I'm willing to do the heavy lifting.
Right.
I and many others are willing to go deep.
Yeah. Let me make sure. Vanessa, are you still out there? Did we answer your question? If not, let me make sure that you got it answered.
Yeah, he answered it. Yeah.
Okay. And you are in the state of Texas, right?
Right.
And I'm assuming that Texas is having all sorts of problems every time you turn, on the TV, you look at social media, and then I believe you hail from Flint, Michigan, which is where the water situation is taking place now, correct?
Right. My daughter is still there. I got other family members still in Flint, yeah.
Okay, just to move off base, we got time. Can you give us a little about that? Because should Gary become successful in his bid for United States Congress, this is something that we can talk about, and it will be live and on his conscience, on his mind, on his heart, should he make it there. So maybe he can start thinking about some things that can be assisting with regards to helping by way of policies, procedures of some kind. Because if this has been going on as long as I have seen on the mainstream media, it is obvious that somebody at the top, this 1%, the elites, or whoever you want to call them, they should be responsible for this. And it looks and appears that it could be something close to mass murder.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Now, the thing with the water, now when I lived in Flint I lived there for 36 years. And I moved down here in 1992. We had problems in Flint long before, this ever happened, but the water bill, I have been talking to people that, my friends and other family members, the water bills were just outrageous in Flint. They were paying, you had to pay a deposit of $500 just to get your water turned on.
Oh my God.
Oh my.
And it was, the water, the bills were, when I used to live there, we paid the water bill every 3 months. You paid about $10 every 3 months. Then it went to once a month. It was like maybe $30. Now they're paying up in the hundreds of dollars for this water. And when General Motors was there was a Fisher Body, and they built Buick City because Fisher Body, they built the cars, they built the body, and they would transport that across town to Buick City to complete the car. So when they decided they wanted to build the entire car at Buick City, they tore down parts of the old Fisher Body, and lo and behold, what do you think they found? They found barrels of toxic waste. Rate of cancer of people that work in the shop. Then when they tore down Buick City, they found the exact same thing. They found all these barrels of toxic waste. And within a 10 to 20 mile radius around that area, a lot of people died of cancer, or people have cancer. A lot of my classmates, I graduated in 73. We've lost many classmates to cancer is unreal, and a lot of them work for General Motors. So all of this has been going on for years and years and years. So General Motors had always dumped their waste into the Flint River. The Flint River was, they used it when I was there. So now this Governor Snyder, the things that he the manager did this, then it was on him. Snyder may not have known about it. But I'm trying to think, okay, he appointed this guy. So it's coming out that Snyder didn't know about it. And then the DEQ, they covered it up. They tried to badmouth the doctor that said the lead poisoning in children was almost double. They tried to make it sound like she was a nut. And then they tried to make it sound like the environmentalist people there were crazy when they said the lead level was going up. So it was a cover-up thing from the family. So now that you're caught, and then when they got this new mayor, Ms. Weaver, she went in immediately and declared a state of emergency. Now they're trying to, they're almost trying to say that Snyder declared it. No, Snyder didn't. The mayor did. And it's, people, even Houston, we're sending water to Michigan because I talked to my daughter. And they said, well, Mama, we don't drink the water, but they have to bathe in it.
And Ted Cruz wants to dismantle the EPA.
Right. And while we were talking about that, Gary, I would never put you on the spot. And the reason why I wanted that information out there is because maybe, should you prevail, that you would at least have talked to someone that has a personal interest in this situation. And the DEQ and people, I have a problem with people always saying that the government shouldn't do this, the government shouldn't do that. Well, the government were the ones who dismantled Brown versus Board of Education. The government were the ones who broke down Jim Crow, segregation, and all of those other things. The government were the ones who gave women the right to vote. The government were the ones who gave women the right to choose. So when we look at government, it has a role to play in this particular country. And for those who say that it shouldn't, well, the first disaster that happens, everybody's always talking about, well, let's seek federal assistance. Let's seek federal aid. When the farmers don't make it, let's seek federal aid. So it's like you can't have your cake and you eat it too. And Gary, I personally am tired of the hypocrisy from the Democratic Party. I am especially tired of it from the Republican Party. And I feel that now there should be a movement of other individual people, progressive as we know, to move this thing forward, to deal with this climate change, to deal with this higher education, to deal with this health care, because what were issues back in 1960, 2016 is totally different. Here's a classic example. Nobody ever imagined a cell phone in 1960. Look at what we have now, Gary.
That's right. Well, it's interesting. Whenever people say, well, I hate government, I say, well, you're government. I'm government. Government is the aggregate voice of the people.
Exactly.
Government is what keeps the tyranny of the majority in check. Government is what keeps your interests in front of you. So what they hate really is the government we've become. But what they don't understand is they created this oligarchic government, this government created by special interests that does stand in your way, that doesn't listen to the people. So it's this weird conundrum of the people who hate government. They hate the government they create.
speak English, but somehow they're not understanding our English, and we're not understanding theirs. Not to be shot at, a little boy at 12 years old being shot at. I mean, we have rights, but
Right.
why aren't they hearing our rights to be what we are and who we are? They want to change who we are. They want to change what we are, and they want to be the top 62. The 62 people that own 1/3 of the population of the world. You heard that right today on radio?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Is that the most incredible, horrible thing in the world?
Yeah.
The wealth?
There's so many things going on there, and we have to dismantle them to understand. One of the things that's happened is, and we talked about this earlier, is media that's no longer journalism.
Right.
It fans those flames. The existence of Fox News alone fans the fans that flame.
But they don't understand that. So how do you make them understand English?
Well,
I mean, truly, I'm not being funny.
No, I know you're not, and I want to give a good answer, but there isn't a really clear one. I believe, look, the only choice I see is this. We have to keep fighting the fight. We have to keep laying it out there. We have to keep coming at them with reason and more information. We have to show them that, hey, we did the math on this. Let's look at the historical context here of the economy. Keynesian economics. Not listening. Seriously. No, you're right. And part of it is, economically speaking, the people who are struggling the most still think they might become millionaires. They still think they might win the lottery, and so they don't want their taxes taken away. There's a lot of illogic out there. I have to come back to this. And Barrett and I talked about it, and I agree with him that a scale of 1 to 10, we're only at 2, and we should be at 8. But at least we're not still at 1.
Right.
I do believe that we're, I don't want to say winning, because that sounds like the job is done. But I do believe that we're not losing. I do believe that we are moving forward, just not quite fast enough, and we need to move faster. But I do believe we're moving forward. I do believe that the more we educate, that students come out with the ability to think more critically, they tend to become progressive. I said
well, they have to be anything but what's going on now. Because you know what? We are at a critical mass. That is my belief. Yes. With the military, who constantly say, well, they're going to protect us. Well, guess what? They're not, because if the guys and the women that watch football this weekend, if you took one game and you took those 22 players and they dissipated right off the greens, that's how many men and women of our military are killing themselves each day.
Right.
Guess what? We don't have any military.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you, obviously, something has to change. And what I think should change is that I think more people that's sitting on the sideline cheerleading should actually get in the game and start playing. And by that I mean everybody should understand that politics is common sense. It has been made out to be something that is totally not. We got too many people that makes an I be something else, make a you be something else, and now we're scrambling with what is the truth versus what is not the truth. And I think people like Gary and other people that are interested in making the sacrifice to get out there and run for office, I think we should allow them to allow their voice to be heard. We should allow them the opportunity and the platform to be seen, so we can understand what it is about them, what their experiences are in life. And when we find that information out, like we are trying to do with Senator Bernie Sanders and all of those others that are out there in this progressive movement, this progressive caucus, we should be able to go out and tell a neighbor, tell a friend that this particular person is doing this, they stand for this. I just saw moments ago that, listen to this, former Attorney General Eric Holder, under the Clinton administration, but under Barack's attorney general, he has now come out and endorsed Hillary Clinton. Well, imagine that. Imagine that. Let's look at all of these people that are going with the establishment. Senator Clinton, former Secretary of State, she has done is doing the same thing that she did back in 06, 07, 08 against Barack. She will stop at nothing to get to where she's at. I think Senator Sanders is a good man. I think he believes in what he believes in, and at least he's able to take a position on Monday, and if you talk to him on Friday, he still has the same position. What do you think about that, Gary, and anybody else that's out there on the line?
I agree.
Well, I agree 100%. You know, the perfect example is TPP. Bernie Sanders stood against that. I stood against it. We understood that it's selling the American worker down the river. It's giving corporations the ability to sue the United States of America if their margins aren't what they want. Too much power. And Hillary Clinton waited. I believe she waited until the poll said, "Oh, it's politically more expedient to be against it," and she moved against it. I have a problem with it. Look, I'm all for anyone that reaches a point of enlightenment. So the woman I'm running against in the primary was a Republican. Well, she's a Democrat now. Well, great. I'm glad she's a Democrat. But
what a
I don't think
wonderful
that's
thing
the
that
best
is.
progressive we can put in this office. I don't think that Hillary Clinton is the right progressive.
Right.
Bernie Sanders, who's been consistent on these issues. He voted against going into Iraq in 2002. I think history has proven him to be correct. I mean, he has a history of conviction and moral principle that is consistent. That's what I'm supporting.
Well, and you also know, Gary, that former First Lady, she failed to deliver on health care when her husband was in office. When you look at Bill being in office, there was more individuals from non-Anglo-Saxon background that entered into the prison system, institutionalization. So there are a lot of facts that are out there that people are not pointing out. And I think, once again, it's up to these types of media outlets, because remember, in the next 5 years, mainstream media won't have a chance to deal with what's going on now. And if you notice, mainstream media, they tried to go out, because we had it last week where those affiliates of those syndicated shows, they go out and solicit people like us and ask us to come on their program with our content so they can do what? Control the message. But guess what?
Right.
I said no. I will continue to say no until the end of time, because I am one of those who feel that my voice is just as powerful as Donald Trump. Now, Trump has more money than any of us that's on this line, but at the same time, he is a vote for Trump, to me, is a vote for World War III. What do you think?
I don't know to what abyss he will necessarily take us. I can't be sure. But I know that a vote for Trump is a vote against what this nation is predicated upon. It was predicated upon a vision and a vision of wisdom. Now, it was flawed. You know, the Founding Fathers created a document that was flawed. It didn't include women. It didn't include blacks. It didn't include anybody but white male landowners for the most part. But they had the vision to create a document that would bend and expand and contract and evolve with our consciousness, and they knew that. That was very deliberate. And so, again, it is progressivism, it is the history of liberalism, the revolutionary spirit that created that, and that's what's in our souls and hearts right now. But Donald Trump is the other side. He is the side of oligarchy. He is the side of, hey, how much money can I make? Good for me. If it's good for me, it's good for you. Well, no. That's not America. That's not America.
Well,
that's about him.
And Gary, I'm sitting here listening, and I'm saying to myself, the same thing that you just said, I have been saying for many, many, many years, because I am black. If I say what you just said, then I am being anti-whatever. It does not matter whether you said or I said. The fact remains is that the truth is the truth. It doesn't matter who it's coming from. And what I like about what you're saying is that because you are owning up to the truth, It does not mean that you are giving up who you are, giving up, the keys to, white America. You're just simply being what you're supposed to be, which is an honest individual that's telling the truth. So I don't quite understand how all of this stuff. We have a comment that says Hillary cannot be trusted. People better pay attention to Bernie. They would screw up big time if they put their trust, put it there, just an opinion. So that's somebody else that's out there listening from the state of Louisiana just sent that in. Gary, once again, running for United States Congress in Iowa. Want to give you the opportunity to make sure that we have not missed. Go ahead.
Well, it's funny. I'm always asked, what are my top 3 issues? Well, you know what? I always give an answer that's different than what they were looking for.
Okay.
They're all my top issues.
Uh-huh.
All my top issues. Civil rights are my top issue. The environment, the middle class, raising the minimum wage, the environment, foreign policy, Medicare, Social Security, collective bargaining. These are always at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the one thing we didn't touch on this evening, one of them is climate change. I do believe that it's real. Call me crazy, but I tend to believe when 97% of the scientists in a particular discipline say one thing, I tend to believe them.
Mm-hmm.
So I do believe that it's something serious. And one of the things that I would do, get behind, because some bills exist before Congress right now, or I'd create a new bill if I had to, and it's to put a carbon fee and rebate on the 7 billion tons of inorganic gas from the United States alone that's pumped into our atmosphere. Well, moving toward green energy and clean environment is the right direction, regardless if someone is a climate change denier or not. It's still the correct direction.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot pump. It's the only negative outcome exhaust that there's no fee on. So these companies, the oil industry just keeps pumping that into our atmosphere for free. Well, let's make them pay. Let's put perhaps $20 per ton. We've now created probably $1 trillion over 10 years. Well, that money goes to develop low-income families, all sorts of positive things. It's a Pagovian tax where you take a negative outcome, you put a fee on it, and you use that fee toward positive outcomes. It's a perfect thing to do. Why we haven't done that already is astonishing to me.
Well, I'll tell you, Gary, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you answer this question. Gary Kroeger, running for United States Congress in the state of Iowa. Gary, why should people consider you to go to Washington, D.C., and represent their interests? Why should they vote for Gary Kroeger? Tell them now exactly what you stand for.
I am a hardworking, middle-class American. I'm the father of 2 young boys who face insurmountable educational debt if things continue the way they are, a quagmire in foreign policy, limited opportunity for the rest of their lives. My boys represent America. They represent the entire generation. It is incumbent upon me, it is my responsibility as a citizen, a free citizen, to do everything I can, every single day, to fight for the future of opportunity, for a clean environment, for a safe world, for a pursuit of happiness, life, and liberty.
Mm-hmm.
Every day. I am an honest man. I am transparent. I listen. I have ideas. I like to think. I like to engage. I have a career of working with people. One of the great advantages of being in show business is my job was to work with people from disparate groups of all sorts of different places come together to create something positive. That's my training. No wonder that Al Franken is such a good senator. I think that people would vote for Jon Stewart if they had the chance.
Yeah.
I come from that cloth. I agree. I come from that cloth. We want to affect positive change.
Right. Well, and I
have a lot of energy.
Right, and I think you have a sense of humor. I think you can take the good with the bad. I think if there's a Republican that's there, you're willing to work across party aisles to get the job done. You don't hold grudges. You're just open-minded. You're forward-thinking, and you have those leadership skills and the ability to lead other people down a path of right direction rather than continuously going across and over the cliff like we're going now. The establishment is no longer working. The establishment has done damage for 400 years, for 200 years, for 100 years, for the last 50 years. The establishment is doing nothing but taking us off the cliff, and eventually we're going to go off the cliff and we're going to fall so deep until all of these other countries that are just sitting back waiting for disaster to happen. We need to wake up, we need to get involved, and we need to make sure that our voices are heard, that our message is clear, that our number one goal is to go out and just simply make a difference. Now, we know that things exist from all spectrums. We know that some people we don't understand, but because we don't understand those people does not mean we have to be judgmental and automatically discount them simply because we know nothing about who they are. And I think when we do that, we show just how disingenuous we are, just how closed-minded we are, and just how much of a hypocrite we are in this particular country. Gary, I'm going to give you the opportunity to give your closing statements and anybody else that's out there. But let me back up. Before I do that, is there anybody else that's out there on the line who has not had the opportunity to say a word? If you just want to represent from the state you're coming from, you may do so at this time. Judging by ways and action, there are none. Gary, I'm going to allow you to give your closing final pitch. Gary Kroeger, candidate for United States Congress in the state of Iowa.
Thank you, Baron. And it's been a real fun pleasure to talk to you this evening. I really believe that what you're doing, what everyone on the line is doing, everyone listening, is engaging. And that's what my candidacy is about, and that's what I would be as a legislator. I would engage. I know that there are people who disagree. There are people who disagree vociferously that will argue every point that we've made. But I'm willing to roll up my sleeves every single day and do what I call the math. Do the math. To look at the actual truth in the figures, to keep putting a glaring spotlight on truth. Mm-hmm. And that's how I intend to move the needle and work with people and reach across the aisle. Mm-hmm. You know, I have a lot of energy. And my conviction is my DNA. I'm not on some middle-aged activity program. It is my DNA. Uh-huh. I am the son that my parents created, and they were the two most wonderful people on earth. Mm-hmm. They taught me civil rights. They taught me egalitarianism, and they fought for justice. They marched for civil rights when I was a little boy. This is my DNA. Now, I believe that candidacy should be publicly funded. We have campaign finance reform ahead of us, but I'm stuck in a world right now where I have to raise money. Mm-hmm. I'm being outraised by my opponents 10-1. So I offer to anyone listening, I have a website, KroegerForCongress.com. I put issues up there. There's opportunities to get involved, to donate to my campaign if you felt so inspired.
Yeah, Gary.
Kroeger for Congress.
Let me chime in. Go ahead on and give out all of your contact information, your email or wherever anybody can contact you if they want to become a part of your campaign, phone bank call, or whatever. Go ahead on and give that information out as well.
Everything is contained at Kroeger for Congress. You just have to spell it right. KROEGERFOR Congress.com. I also keep a website going, though, that's a personal blog. It's not a political blog, but it's my own personal thoughts about the socio-political world. And people find it pretty interesting, and it's easy to remember. It's Gary Has Issues, GaryHasIssues.com. And you can participate there, but I've got 200 essays that I've written over the last few years about the very issues that we're talking about. You went to it, Baron, because that's where you got some of the thoughts that I had.
Yes, sir.
GaryHasIssues.com, but again, Kroeger for Congress. I welcome ideas. I'm not so arrogant as to think that I'm right about everything. I have convictions. I have principles. I like to study. I like to research. I don't believe anything without a reason, but I'm listening. I've been enlightened to things, many things, many things, and I write about them. I don't hide the truth. I don't pretend to be perfect. I have my flaws, and I'm willing to display them. Let me finish by saying this. I wrote an essay that I posted, I think, today, and it's about Martin Luther King. I said, as a testament to the man, Martin Luther King, here's my challenge to America. Let's start telling the truth. Let's start telling the truth. Let's admit that when we're wrong. What if a candidate said, wow, that's convincing evidence. Let me reconsider my position. Would we respect them, or would we call them a flip-flopper? Well, the truth is we'd call them a flip-flopper today, wouldn't we? We've made it impossible for people to tell the truth. But let's challenge ourselves. Let's challenge ourselves to admit when we're wrong, to say that there's more compelling evidence, to listen, to stop pretending like we've got it all. Let's cooperate. So, Martin Luther King was about integration, removing segregation. Well, let's integrate truth into our rhetoric. Let's inspire ourselves to be better than what we are today.
Right.
We could do that. Now, that's my fantasy dream.
Well,
I have that dream. That's I have a dream.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think it's a fantasy. I think you're doing very well. And we want to thank you for taking out your busy schedule to come on the broadcast and talk live to the listeners that are out there. Gary, you can take this MP3 format. You can share it on all your social media pages. You can share it on your blog. You can share it by text messaging it. You can share it on YouTube and all those other places where you want your voice to be heard. So your supporters, your listeners, are those who you're trying to convince to come over on your side. You have been a wonderful guest, and I look forward to you coming back, either co-hosting or hosting or whatever the case may be, because we have a lot in common. And I've always wondered, this is true, I've always wondered about Iowa. And even when the president won, because you always hear negative things about places that you have nothing about. So people try to distort what it is that you know. And I just like to say that Iowa and people from Iowa, I have been able to learn a lot and have opened my eyes, and I realized that just because people come from a majority, it does not mean that they think in the majority fashion. So, Gary, you did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming on. And we will conclude the particular segment and say good night to you, because I know that you are actually ready to get out there and do some things.
Thank you, Baron. It's been my pleasure. I look forward to speaking again. I will co-host with you anytime. Let's keep fighting the good fight, my friend.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, we're going to close it out.
The bottom of my heart.
Yes, sir. Thanks for coming on, Gary. You've done a wonderful job.
Bye-bye now.
All right. We've been listening to Mr. Gary Kroeger, candidate for United States Congress. Tonight's topic, the need for progressivism with Gary Kroeger. I want to close out tonight by a little a piece that I wrote today. You can go and check it out at www.thesmokingglasshour.wordpress.com. And I titled it, A Moment of Unity. Stress to the youth that neither racial intolerance nor lack of civility are allowable in our society. We have come a long way as a nation, and we should never let the hands of time be turned backwards. We all have to get along if we're going to engage the promise and pluck of American freedom and democracy. I salute the school principals, civil leaders, clergy members, the schools with the many laypersons and parents who defend injustices toward underprivileged people. Yes, we live in a diverse society, and it is part and parcel of living in a pluralistic nation that we never seek to shout each other down because of our outer differences, because of cultural variations, because of ethnic origin. But more important than just mouthing these sentiments, we, the adults, must show our children through our actions that unity makes for a better world, makes for a peaceful coexistence, and makes for a stronger America. We must not let our children stray from the path forged by our brave foreparents. This is our duty. This is our task. I hope that our moment of unity in 2016 is not temporary, instead, long-lasting. Unity should be a moment of awakening for the children and a moment of reawakening for those of us who shape and mold the minds of our children. I sit today in the unenviable position of having to watch how corporate America has forever changed the world, particularly to the point that small cities may become a dying breed and low-paying workers are falling deeper and deeper below the line of survival. Things are bound to change. Change is both a force and a fact of life. I think that with some solid effort, we can rise to the challenge of changing injustices in this country, just as Martin King did during his time on earth. It's a must that we join hands and unite for the common cause of humanity. With the meeting of creative, diverse, sound minds, we can figure out just how to make life better for our kids, our grandkids, and the like. When this happens, not just the 1% flourish, we all flourish. The real thrill in it all for me is that I sit in a position where I can watch it all going down, watch it all unfurl, watch us step up to the bat. My final 2 cents would be to ask more of our leaders and to ask more of ourselves. A leader had better be able to pinpoint our most fundamental problems and develop a proactive solution. We must consider helpful ideas even when those ideas come from people that do not look like us, think like us, talk like us, and etc. When it comes to the public, we must be more inclusive, not exclusive. We must not become intoxicated by money, fame, or illusion of power. We must be forward-thinking. Forward-thinking just as Dr. King was, just as Marcus Garvey was, just as Thurgood Marshall was, and many other blazing pioneers of the past. The time is now. The time must not be later. We must recognize that the leadership we're waiting for is us. We must also recognize we need change, bad, but that change can't come without all of us. As many leaders trip, communities, people, and schools in America will continue to sink. Most people want to have individual agendas instead of great community interests and ideas. I not only challenge myself, but I challenge others to demand the best from our leaders. Don't let anyone disrespect or abuse your trust. Anything less is accepting the notion that we can do nothing to better ourselves, the system, and this great country called America. United we stand, divided we fall. January 18, 2016. This is my cry. This is my moment of unity on Martin Luther King holiday. You've been listening to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass on WMAD 24-hour global radio. Thanks for listening in, and may the good Lord be with you. Thanks, and have a great night, and thanks for tuning in to the broadcast. Good night.